My name is Jagdish. I am a professor at Ball State, and I wrote an application to the US Department of Health, Office of Women's Health, that we would like to conduct a big campaign on this campus to raise awareness on prevention of violence against women. And they happened to give us this award, and so we have a 3-day long event at the Scramble Light. We are asking all the men who pass by, will you support prevention of violence against women? If they say yes, we paint their nails red and tell them you are man enough. And the name of the campaign is Operation Jungle Red. Are you man enough? So I'm wearing this t-shirt now, and we asked the men to take a pledge.
Come on, Mayor. There you go, buddy.
Come on over.
I actually was wearing my, See, all you gotta do is ask. Yeah.
I'm glad you came here.
Well, we're glad to be here. Glad to help.
I'm with no means to There's an amazing research team and team, volunteer coordinators that set all this up.
Glad to be here.
I didn't set up the weather either, so.
Sorry that it's not better than.
Oh, no. Thank you for coming out. We really appreciate it. We've got the Walk a Mile event going on as well.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Hey, you're next. You're a good man. Okay, you ready for me?
Oh, yeah.
I'm the mayor.
Nice to meet you. Very nice to meet you, sir. Thank you so much for coming out today.
Glad to do it.
Do you have a preference?
No.
Okay.
Just don't put it on my nose.
All right. No nose. All right. Let's do this one. Yeah, we're really excited that you were able to come out. I know you have a busy schedule, but
it's all right.
It's a very important mission. We know that you're very active in the community. It's a beautiful day as well.
Yeah. Have you seen anything on our new safe stations that we've done with the fire station?
Yeah. We were talking with Michelle Cole in our office.
Chief Bell and Deputy Chief Granger are here, so.
I sign a pledge card.
Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, the pledge cards are awesome. We actually have some resources on the back, so we're directing students and faculty just so they know that there are resources available on campus and in the community. We do have nail polish remover.
Okay. No, I'm good. Okay.
You sure?
Can you keep this?
Oh, I keep this?
Yeah,
Okay.
you can keep that.
Let me do this.
Thank you.
This
And
right
then
here.
blow on that a little. It's on the other side.
Hey, good. How are you?
Excellent, thank you. It's a beautiful day, isn't it?
It is. Be a little warmer.
Oh, it's still very nice out.
What's going, guys? Thank you for coming out. We really appreciate it.
Okay. There you go.
Let's
see that, Mayor.
That's awesome.
Hey, that's a good look
Beautiful.
for you.
Matches up real nice with my blue,
Oh
don't
my
it?
gosh,
For autism
yes.
awareness. Yeah.
Yeah, and we've got our Walk a Mile event going on as
you
well.
do?
Straight down. Michelle Cole from our office of advocacy is doing our Walk a Mile event.
Stand.
So, you know,
The pledge to take a stand. Thank you for coming. Very kind.
Thank
You sign then we have a record and we can sign that. Not all of you.
Really, it's a great school, and I'm happy.
Thank you for taking time out of your busy day to support our good cause.
Thank you.
It was a great cause.
I think a lot of males don't realize that it's our part as advocates, just as much as everybody else, to be advocates for women.
Yeah.
almost there. This was better, much better. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. Cheers, bud.
Well, for Operation Jungle Red, it's really targeted towards the men so that they know that the type of behavior, the violent behavior that is exhibited towards women is not an okay thing to do. And that's where we come in. We're an awareness campaign to try to spread that knowledge that it's our part to be advocates just as anybody else to try to end the culture of violence against women. The entire point of that is to spread the awareness of our campaign and spread the awareness of anti-violence. I mean, every little campaign has a gimmick, and that's kind of ours, is the nail paint. To have men break down the standard gender roles that they may see as, to break down the standard gender roles of men being more dominant than women. And that's what we're trying to do, is create an equality to say, are you man enough to paint your nail to help end violence against women?
Well, and I think part of it too that is really great is that when you see someone's nail painted and you're walking around campus or you're in the community, you're going to say, hey, why is your one nail painted bright red? You're going to say, oh, well, I painted my nail because of Operation Jungle Red. And that's going to start those conversations and really spark that idea or plant that seed in someone's head that, you know, it might not end violence initially, but if you can plant that seed in someone's head, maybe down the line they'll have that second thought and say, okay, maybe if someone is struggling in a relationship, or if someone is having second thoughts about being in a situation that isn't healthy for them, that then can be the change that they need to be in a healthier situation. So I think that, you know, the awareness will come and eventually create change in that sense.
And I think that's, as a faculty sponsor, I think that's the message. Let's get started. Let's talk about the issue. And once we start talking, maybe we can solve the issue. Violence against women. So yeah, you're right on that. Thank you.
Great. Thank you everyone so much for coming tonight. My name is Sarah Yaniga, and this is Operation Jungle Red. Alright, so we'll start with some facts of the campaign. How many of you knew that the U.S. Department of Justice said young women aged 16 to 24 are at the most risk of being raped? Show of hands. That's awesome, because a lot of people don't know that. Secondly, the majority of people that experience rape or sexual assault are younger than 25. The majority of people in this room are under 25. Also, over 80% of sexual assaults are not reported to campus police. So we realized that this was an issue, and we wanted to bring awareness to that at Ball State. What is Operation Jungle Red? Operation Jungle Red is a campaign to help end violence toward women. It was a 3-day campaign beginning April 3rd. We were on multiple locations around campus. We were at the Scramble Light, we were at the rec center, we were in the atrium, and we were approaching men saying, are you man enough to take a stand and end violence toward women? Now we understand that painting your nail is not going to end violence toward women, but it is going to create those conversations that will plant a seed in someone's head and say, I don't need to put up with verbal abuse. I don't need to put up with physical assault. I don't need to put up with rape. These are vital conversations that we have started on campus. These are all the men on campus that are man enough, and I would like to thank you all for joining us tonight. Give yourselves a round of applause. So we had some lofty goals. Obviously, raising awareness of violence toward women is a big issue, and we wanted to paint over 1,000 males' nails. All of this nail polish was donated by OPI, and we're very thankful to them. Our main thing was that we wanted guys and girls to say, hey, we know this is an issue. So we had pledge cards, and on the back of those pledge cards were resources on campus that, you know, if people felt they needed help, or if they wanted to, you know, go to the Office of Victim Services and say, hey, I think I want to learn more about this, or I think I need to find out how to help my friend that might have experienced sexual assault, or might be experiencing emotional abuse right now. So these were lofty goals, but I think we did a great job. For our pledge cards, we received over 1,000 signatures. I don't know how many of you guys have done surveys before, but this is pretty awesome of a sample. So I'm very proud of our entire campaign. We met awesome people in the community. This is not just an issue at Ball State, this is a community issue. There are a lot of people in the audience tonight that I'd like to thank for coming. The Honorable Mayor is here, the police chief, the fire marshal, all of our panelists that will discuss and introduce their qualifications later on. But you guys, the students, are the voice of this campaign. Our volunteers are the people that are really creating change and creating awareness of this huge issue. So now I'll tell you a little bit more about the details. Basically, we got a grant from the U.S. Department of Health, Office of Women's Health. Like I said, the nail polish was generously donated to us. The Department of Physiology and Health Sciences technically received the grant. It was written by Dr. Kupchandani, and he is here tonight. I'm the campaign manager. I'm a public relations major, and the reason I feel I'm qualified to moderate the panel tonight is I'm actually a survivor of intimate partner violence. So I by no means consider myself, you know, an expert on this issue, but we have amazing experts with us tonight. So once again, thank you for being here. And now, I'd like to introduce my awesome research team. They're going to come up and tell you exactly what we found on Ball State's campus and within the community about, you know, issues within the community, things that, some things surprising, some things we're very proud that you guys were aware of that a lot of other campuses don't necessarily know. So I'd like to welcome Emily, Tiffany, and Anita.
Can everyone hear me? I don't have a microphone, so everyone in the back? Okay, yes, good. So thank you, Sarah, for the introduction. My name is Emily Sullivan, and this is Tiffany Ryder. We were the students here at Ball State who worked with Operation Jungle Red, and what we did was at the beginning of last semester, once Dr. Kupchandani received the grant from the United States Department of Health and Human Services, he came to us and said, you know, I want to propose and create a survey to distribute to students here on campus, and, you know, I want your help. So Tiffany and I worked together. We read through a lot of different literature reviews and research articles and came up with an appropriate survey that we sent out and distributed to all of Ball State students, which you guys probably received several times in your inboxes, just as a reminder. And so basically the purpose of the study was just to assess the students' knowledge, attitudes, and beliefs here on campus on their perceptions of just violence against women and how it is handled and perceived. And so the methods that we used was as we surveyed the total Ball State University population of 2,000 using a 95% confidence interval and a 3% margin of error. And we used the electronic questionnaire through SurveyMonkey, which we were able to distribute through the Office of Victim Services here at Ball State. And it was really great that the number of respondents that we had was 1,154, which exceeded the goal that we had initially. We were shooting for 100, and then once we hit that marker, we were so excited, and then we were lucky enough to get that last 150 or so. And so our survey was focused on the four main elements. So we wanted to assess the students' knowledge about violence against women, their perceptions about how violence is perceived against women and sexuality, and then the awareness and whether or not people were aware and knew that the Office of Victim Services existed here in the state. And then also we wanted to gather a lot of demographic and background information of our students to assess who is being surveyed with this information. And so this was kind of a snapshot of the demographics and the background information of the respondents that we had. So we had 23% male and 77% female. For ethnicity, we had 86% Caucasian, non-Hispanic, 5% African American, 3% multiracial, 2% Hispanic, 2% Asian American, and 2% other. And for living arrangements, we had the majority of students were living off campus. The majority were undergraduates, and then we had enrollment status was full-time, and then the age was an average of about 24. And so as mentioned previously, the knowledge assessment was one of the main components that we were looking for, and so the following graphs are going to represent the knowledge-based questions that we asked the students and the respondents that we had. And so for this first question, we asked students whether or not they believe that young female college students were at the highest risk of being raped, and we had 73% agreed with this statement, which was in fact true, so it was good to see that the majority of students here at Ball State recognized this fact and knew that it was true. And then for the second question, we had the majority of female college students who are stalked report the stalking to campus police or campus law. And we had 89% disagreed with that, which was also true, that the majority of females who are stalked on campus do not report this to campus police. And this was something, it's a significant statistic, and it was good that students were able to recognize this. And then for the third question, the majority of female college students have been sexually harassed at least once during college. And we had 74% agreed with this, which was also true. And then number 4, we had in most sexual assaults that occur on college campuses, the victim knows the assaulter. And we had 85% agree with this statement, which was also true. And then for the fifth question, it assessed the definition of rape that we have here in Indiana. So what we pulled was, if someone is intoxicated and consents to have sex, this should not be considered rape. We had 61 disagree with this statement and 39 agree with this statement. And so this statement is actually considered false. Indiana's definition of rape has 3 main components. Basically, it's knowingly or unintentionally has sexual intercourse with a member of the opposite sex when 1, the other person is compelled by force or imminent force, 2, the other person is unaware that the sexual intercourse is occurring, and then 3, the other person is mentally disabled or deficient that consent to sexual intercourse cannot be given, which is where the alcohol plays into that effect. So this is actually a really interesting fact, and I think a lot of students aren't aware of that, based on Indiana's law and definition of rape, that if you do have sex while you're drunk, even if it is consensual, it is still considered rape. So this was an interesting finding. And then for our 6th question, intimate partner violence is seen more frequently in opposite-sex couples as compared to same-sex couples, and this was the question where we had a very close disagreement, where we had 57% agree and 43% disagree. And the answer to this is that intimate partner violence is actually equal among gay and straight couples. And so, as you can see, a lot of students were kind of torn between the two and weren't really sure the prevalence of this issue. And so a lot of students are unaware that IPV is such a prevalent issue in the homosexual community. And one of our panelists that we have tonight is actually, his name is Tyler, and he's the president of Spectrum, and so he'll be able to elaborate and answer any questions on this later on. And so the 7th question that we asked was, the majority of victims stalked on campus know their stalkers, and 73% agreed with this, which was true. And then the last 2 questions we had, the first one was, every year more than 25% of women are stalked on college campuses, and 78 agreed with this while 22 disagreed, and the answer was actually false. So this was one of the questions where students, the majority of students got the answer wrong, and I think only about 13% to 23% are actually stalked on campus. And then for the very last question, we have more than 25% of college women have been injured emotionally or psychologically from being stalked. And we had 81% agree with this and 19% disagree with this. And the answer to this was true. And so overall, the majority of students here at Ball State were able to answer the knowledge questions correctly, which is really great to see because it shows that everybody is receiving the right and proper information, and everybody knows just the issues that are here relevant on campus. And so I'm going to kind of transition to Tiffany, and she's now going to discuss just the respondents' results in regards to their experiences and perceptions. Thank you. Hi, can everyone hear me okay? Cool. Alright. So what about abuse at Ball State University? Our survey showed that 30% of respondents have been abused, and out of those, 15% have experienced multiple types of abuse. So that could include verbal abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse. So what are the high-risk groups at Ball State? We found that risk increases with age. Those 21 and over reported more abuse, as did those who lived off campus. However, abuse was equal among straight and gay couples, and there was no significant relationship between those who are single and those who are in a relationship. Nationally, people aged 16 to 24, as Sarah said earlier, African American women, people who have previously experienced abuse, and those with a lower socioeconomic status are all higher risk groups. Our survey also addressed awareness and usage of the Office of Victim Services. Just over 50% are aware of the free services, while only 3% have actually used the services. This indicates that we are not actually reaching as many abused people as are on campus. So let's take a look at some of the perceptions and beliefs about our campus. As you can see, there are still some stereotypes and negative beliefs on campus about women. Women should be submissive. 93% agreed with that, and 7% agreed with. 93% disagreed with that, and 7% agreed with that. If a woman is wearing revealing clothing, she shouldn't be surprised if she's assaulted. Disturbing, 15% agreed with that. If a woman goes to the home of her partner after a date, it means she wants to have sex. 5% agreed with that. If there is no physical resistance, then a rape has not occurred. 6% agree with that. But the fact is, if you're having non-consensual sex, that's rape. When a woman says no, she really means yes. 2% agree with that. Next, if there is no physical resistance, men should engage in prevention of violence against women. 2% disagreed with that. And that's kind of showing that we're missing a few people with our Operation Jungle Red campaign. Women who are assaulted on campus should talk to their friends first about the incident. 32% agreed with that, and 68% disagreed with that. If someone is assaulted on Ball State's campus, they should report the incident to campus law enforcement. 98% agreed with that, and 2% disagreed with that. And as you remember, Emily said earlier, there's a discrepancy between people who are actually reporting sexual assaults and abuse. And if I am assaulted on Ball State University campus, I will report the incident to a campus law enforcement. 94% agreed with that, and 6% disagreed. Based on our results, the majority of students correctly answered the knowledge questions. We do, however, need to increase awareness of the Office of Victim Services, which offers free and valuable services to students. In the future, we need to increase awareness and involvement. As students, we need to stand up and put an end to violence against women and against men. We need to take the initiative to be aware, to be informed, and to be respectful of other human beings. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would now like to welcome our panelists up to the stage. You can sit wherever you'd like. So much for being here with us tonight. It's good to have you. We're just going to start, if you could briefly, we'll start with Tyler. If you could briefly give us an introduction and just tell us why you're qualified.
Okay. My name is Tyler Queer. I'm a sophomore here at Ball State. I'm a nursing major and I'm the president of Spectrum. I have never personally been a victim of sexual assault or domestic violence, but I have read many articles that Dr. K has supplied me with, and I have met with many members in my organization about assaults that they've been part of, so that's why I'm calling.
My name is Michelle Cole, and I am the victim advocate here on campus. I've been a victim, working with victims of violence for going on 14 years. I'm showing my age now. But I enjoy being a part of this process. I also enjoy working with survivors, and it's a passion of mine.
I'm Kimberly Gruesbeck. I'm a survivor. I serve on the Delaware County Domestic Violence Committee, and I'm a community activist.
My name is Joshua Turkina. I'm a master's trainee at the Counseling Center. I'm also a peer victim advocate. I've worked as an intern involved with Better Way, which is a domestic violence shelter here in Muncie. I'm on the sexual assault prevention team at Lucina, at the Counseling Center. And my research interests involve abusive relationships and male victims of sexual assault.
And I'm glad to see Josh up here because he's one of my students and on my research team. I'm Dr. Teresa Kruchek, and I am in the Department of Counseling, Psychology, and Guidance Services. I'm the director of our community-based practicum clinic here, so not Lucina where students and folks here go, but we actually, many people don't realize, we have a outpatient community mental health center here on campus that serves people in the community. My area of research for a very long time, I don't even want to say how long as probably many of you have been alive, has been in the area of facilitating post-traumatic growth and helping survivors of sexual assault but interpersonal violence more broadly cope with their experiences.
Thank you so much. So I think a lot of that data was surprising to me. Can you guys just, give us some reactions to that? Anyone can take it.
I think for me, it was sort of self-serving and sort of validated that a lot of students are not using the Office of Victim Services. If you look at the national statistics and you look at the statistics on campus, not that I'm trying to drum up any business, so to speak, because I am only one, and then a team of peer victim advocates, but we know that there's a large majority of students out there that need to be aware of the services. They need to be aware that we have a caring police department. They need to be aware that we're here. So for me, it was sort of validating in that we need to do more on campus.
I would agree. The statistics weren't particularly surprising. I think the thing that always worries me is that while students do seem to have pretty good knowledge, attitudes, and beliefs that are accurate, sometimes the behaviors don't always follow that, are associated with that. And that's most concerning to me, that frequently students, not just students, but survivors of assault in general, say they'll do one thing until it actually happens, and then a very different thing happens in response to the assault.
Another thing too that I think would be a valid point to discuss was the issue of how same-sex couples, in their relationships, they don't have higher incidences of intimate partner violence, but there's this perception that there is. So I was wondering if Tyler, maybe you could speak to us a little bit about that.
Regarding that, it is equal on gay and straight relationships, but actually it goes less reported in lesbian relationships and gay relationships, because especially for gay men, speaking on that, if the police were to come to that scene, it might be seen as a mutual fight, because same with lesbian individuals, because they're both the same gender, so they're just going to think that they're just fighting, they're not domestic violence or intimate partner violence.
Right. Okay. Another thing too, I wanted to thank you, Kim, for being here so much. Can you, if you wouldn't mind, can you tell us a little bit about your story and how you've come, how did you find the strength to get out of that situation?
Well, I wasn't raised in a violent household, So for me, it was never really a question. Am I working? Can you hear me?
That's my mic.
Oh, I'll have to speak to Sorry. Well, I wasn't raised in a violent household, so for me, there was no question about getting out ever. Getting out is really the easy part. It's the transitioning that's so difficult. And I think that's true with most victims of domestic violence, especially women who have children, where there is a lack of education, where there is a lack of skills. And those are some of the things that we're trying to work on in the community to provide employment services. Let's get some of these women off of social services and into the workforce. I think empowerment is the biggest healer there is.
Right.
And for me, that helped me in my process a lot, was work.
Do you mind if I add to that?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I also have to emphasize the empowerment part because at A Better Way, one of the biggest abusive tactics is financial abuse, getting them no jobs, so they have to be completely financially dependent on them, so they don't know how to get a job, they don't know how to have their own housing, and so giving them the skills they need to provide for themselves and not have someone else provide for them is extremely, extremely helpful.
Can I add one more thing to that? I'm sorry, but also to the point of getting the job and having to empower them. Some have been so isolated for so long and abused, and like even their wardrobe was controlled that they don't even know how to pick out even an outfit that would be appropriate to get the job. So we have to a lot of times start at the what we would see as base level and then empower them up to the simplest thing to pick out and be allowed to wear to an interview.
Yeah. So if I guess I could plug A Better Way. If you have used or tarnished clothes, stuff that you don't wear anymore, feel free to donate your clothes to them so that you have clothes for interviews.
Can I jump in and say one more thing, though, that I think is really important to add about socioeconomic status? And that is that while research, and when you look at prevalence rates that's based on police reports and some of those types of things, suggests that people from lower SES are more likely to be abused than people from higher SES, there is some question about the validity of that data. Because what happens is that the abuse happens in a different context, and there is some thought that the prevalence is really not that dramatically different depending on the socioeconomic status that you live in, but that you have more restricted resources and that you come to the attention of service providers more if you're from a lower SES. And that doesn't necessarily mean that if you are economically well off that you are unlikely to be abused. In fact, there's some concern that you may be just as equally likely to be abused, but may actually be less likely to come to the attention of service agencies. And that's something I think that people don't always recognize or maybe think about.
Okay. One of the things I was kind of curious about are if you could tell us more about what are the signs that we can look for as students and as friends, you know, if we think that there are people that we know that might be in abusive relationships, what are things that we can look for or things that we can say to them to help them get out of those situations and to empower them?
I think some of the signs of domestic violence, for one, there are control issues. Isolation is one of the biggest signs. Obviously, there are physical signs. Most victims of domestic violence kind of just drop out, if you will. So if you see a person withdrawing, obviously there's something is going on. What was the second part of your question?
Just kind of, you know, if there are certain things that you can say to kind of help them and empower them.
You know, one of the things that I have said repeatedly, because a lot of times you'll hear victims make statements like, you know, they didn't mean to, or they're going to change. And my response to that is they may or they may not. But is it worth putting yourself in that position to find out? They're going to change with or without you. So that is one of the things that I've always said that really kind of makes them think. You know, if a person is going to change, they're going to change with or without you.
It's not your responsibility to change them either.
Can I throw a couple of other warning signs in? So if you see isolation in conjunction with a shift in motivation and investment in grades, if you see a shift in behaviors, maybe somebody all of a sudden who didn't drink or didn't do drugs is doing some things like that to cope, that's not the only reason that they might do that. But if you see some shifts in coping strategies in conjunction with the isolation, those are some things to be concerned about as well. So put all the pieces of the puzzle together.
And also, I guess more warning signs would be like a dramatic shift in appearance. Like, do they go from exercising maybe once or twice a week to every day? Are they working out longer? Or do they cut their hair? Or are they keeping it longer than it usually is? Are they buying more makeup? I know this is a lot of women's stuff, but I mean, these are things that try to control their appearance too. So,
All very valid things, and I think helpful for our audience. I was also wondering if you guys could just tell us exactly what is abuse. I know there are different types, and I think there's this broad idea of, you know, abuse is just emotional or abuse is just sexual. So maybe just tell us what exactly is abuse.
I think I'll answer that in just a minute, but I'm going to talk a little bit about if a friend comes to you and discloses. And I think one of the integral and part of this training, and one of the integral things that you can do is validate that person's experience, letting them know that you care and that you appreciate that they've shared this with you. And it is so very important to arm yourself with the knowledge and the resources on campus and in the community, because reality is that students may not want to access the services on campus, and that's okay. We have the community as well. But letting them know and never saying, I'm sorry. Sounds...
And believing them.
Yes. Believing them, never telling them they're sorry. They may not want your sympathy at that particular time. They need you to listen to them. Never take control of the situation. They're already in a controlled situation. So allow them to make the choices and empower them. Give them the tools and resources, and know that when they're ready, they will may or may not leave the situation.
They may go back to their abuser, and having to support that decision and empower them, let them have the control to put them back in the arms of the person that hurt them can be extremely difficult. So get your support as well, and believe them, support them.
So in terms of the signs and the different types of violence that you see, what we know about the research in terms of stalking is that stalking actually starts before the relationship ends. Stalking is during the course of a relationship, and so that's obviously a big sign if somebody's showing up and, hey, I'm going to go to the mall with my girlfriends, and oh, all of a sudden he or she shows up unannounced. You know, the stalking obviously is a big that isolation. Other forms of violence, obviously mental. The mental abuse can be so incredibly damaging. In working with victims of violence, I often have said to my clients, because you know eventually they come into my office and maybe they'll have a black eye, but maybe they won't. But the mental abuse is so incredibly damaging. It erodes their spirit, and it erodes their self-worth and their ability to think that they're worth anything. So that can be oftentimes more damaging, I would say, than a broken arm. And so the mental anguish, the isolation, I think is incredibly cruel, and oftentimes harder to get past. Like I said, the broken arms and things like that, those heal.
But there are essentially 4 types, which your surveys highlighted, right? There's emotional abuse, verbal abuse, physical abuse, and sexual abuse, and they're all on a continuum, and they're not mutually exclusive from one another. The other thing that I think you guys might be likely to see that's a sign of somebody who's being over-controlling is texting. Do you have any friends who their partner texts them all the time, like constantly while they're with you, and interrupts whatever you're doing with them? That's actually something that you might want to be a little concerned about or worried about. And I'm not talking about just a random text here or there. I'm talking about the whole time they're with you. It's text, 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 text. Where are you? What are you doing? What's up? Who are you with? What's going on now? Which is something that you might want to be worried about.
Definitely. One of the questions that we've received on Twitter, I don't know if you guys saw this, but you can tweet in your questions. So definitely do that. But we've received some great ones. As a male sexual assault survivor, I would like to know why your campaign focused on women when the vast majority of abuse against men is unreported. So I know, Josh, you're doing some research about males and sexual assault, and I'm sure, Tyler, you have a lot to discuss, but you guys are the experts, so tell us what you think.
What do you think of why it's not being focused right now? Well, it's because a lot of men feel a lot of shame about this because it's prototypical that the sexual assault victim is a female. Like when I say, what do you think of a rape victim? You think of a woman. And so dealing with one's masculinity and being victimized sexually, which is almost like being like a woman, doesn't fit well. And so there's so much shame there, and it's so difficult to try to even tell anybody that you have to mask yourself inside there. So when we think of sexual assault, we think of interpersonal violence, we think of women. And so dealing with one's masculinity and dealing with the vulnerability of being victimized is a very difficult spot to be in. So.
Absolutely. Can I just say one thing though? I think probably part of the reason that we focus on it is because 30% of all sexual assaults are against women, about 7% are against men. That's not to diminish the 7% who are sexually assaulted, or at least that's what, again, our statistics are. They might be different though, because I think probably more men are reluctant to report it.
Yeah, and like the research I've been following for sexual assault, like if they report it as I've been victimized sexually, it's like 10%. But if you get them to describe the behaviors like I was coerced or pressured into it or I was drunk, the numbers jump up to about 16%. And so there's a lot of stigma being involved with that. So
let's see what else we've got. This is, I think, a great question for Kimberly, but anyone can chime in. The question is, what advice do you give to women who have been assaulted and raped in the past to move on with their lives? I think we've already touched on this a little, but I know you have a great self-defense class. Maybe you want to plug that?
Actually, I will. This Saturday morning, we are going to be launching our self-defense class. It is the SAVE program, which is Survive, Avoid Violent Encounters. It is free to the public. It is a class for women. It's going to be instructed by the Muncie Police Department. It's at the Cornerstone Center for the Arts. I encourage you to come. Self-defense is a skill that can serve you your entire life. You don't have to be in an abusive relationship. Walking across a darkened parking lot makes you a potential victim. So I think it's a good skill for all women to have. I myself was not a victim of sexual assault. I guess that makes me one of the fortunate ones. So I did not have to deal with that aspect. I don't know what the difference is from a survivor standpoint. I'm sure that it is much more difficult to recover. Again, I don't know, I guess it lies in empowerment, in education. You know, it's very easy for us to put together programs and have support groups and all of that. But I think that what is the most productive part of healing is cognitive. When you learn to do things afraid, that's what I did. I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress, and so for me, I just had to learn how to do things afraid. I think that's true for all victims.
There are some things we know that help though. In terms of treatment, some of the things that tend to help if you're in counseling, or even if you want to do something from a more self-help standpoint, there are some books out there. If you don't want to go talk to somebody, there's an excellent book named it's called The Courage to Heal, and it's a good place to start for folks to start to look at that. You can also come in and talk to somebody, either at Lucine at the Counseling Center, or to talk to somebody if you're in the community and any of our mental health agencies in town. But the first piece is to recognize that whatever you're experiencing is typical. There are some typical reactions. You get startled easily. You're walking around anxious and scared, as Kim said. Maybe you have flashbacks when things remind you of what's going on. Maybe you avoid situations that remind you of the abuse. And when you have those experiences, don't beat yourself up over it, mentally or emotionally, because those are normal experiences. And if you're having those experiences, talk to somebody and get some help, because it means that you're maybe struggling with coping on your own and independently.
Our next question is, what would you say to children if you get a divorce due to violence? That's tough. I know you've done some research within middle schools and high schools. Did you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I have. The research, though, that we're currently doing in middle schools and high schools is actually on dating violence prevention in that population, so that's a little bit different. Little different response. But in terms of how to help children deal with it, the reality is the children are not dumb, and they know what's going on. They hear what's happening, even if they don't directly observe it, and they have some sense that something is wrong. And so the best course of action is to be honest at a level that's developmentally appropriate to the child. So if it's a very small child, you would just say something like, this parent hurt the other parent, and that's not right. And so we can't be together anymore because it's not right to hurt people like that. As kids get a little bit older and maybe have a little bit more sophistication, you can talk in a little bit more detail about what's going on, because they may have some unrealistic fears in particular, that maybe they misbehaved, and that's why what happened. And so you may have to deal with some of those kinds of things too in talking with them. But the bottom line is, be honest in a way that's developmentally appropriate, and just say it's not okay for people to hurt each other, and that's why we can't be together.
Yeah, and also with the emphasis on that, like, just to add, I remember coming across some statistics like children of domestic violence or spouses, they witness the abuse about 80 to 90% of the time. So they're not dumb, they know what's going on. They might not see the physical act, but they see the repercussions, and they know what's going on. They hear the screams.
Or hear it.
Yeah.
Sure. All right, one of our next and I think final questions is about what's the future of OJR. So I'm kind of curious to know what you guys thought about this awareness campaign, and where you see something like this going within the Muncie community, and maybe even broader than that.
Well, I can jump in on that, because one of the things that we do know from research is that what we need are what are called ecosystemic interventions. Okay, so what the heck does that mean out of academia? That means that we need interventions that target all levels. So they not only target the individual who is on the receiving end of the interpersonal violence, they also target the person who's delivering the interpersonal violence. They target the systems within which that individual operates. So that might be families, might be friends, might be the broader community. And then some other things that need to happen are not only public awareness campaigns like this, but then also encouraging people to be involved in advocating for stronger victims' rights. Advocating for support in the community, more support services in the community, and that sort of thing. And so the more that we can continue to do that type of broad-based intervention, which includes everybody, the better off we are.
And I think it's incredibly empowering having a campaign like this, seeing men engaging in this type of campaign, because what it does is it sends a very powerful message to the campus community. I mean, we had men coming up to we didn't have to go and solicit a lot of them. They were coming up to us. I want my nail painted. And I think that just speaks volumes. We have the mayor here. He had painted his nail. How empowering it is. Sends a message. We have powerful leaders. We have the police chief here. We have wonderful Detective Huff here. It sends a message that we are standing up. So I hope that this campaign continues, because again, I'm only one, an office of one, and so any kind of help in seeing students that are dedicated. I just want you to know that we met every Friday night, from Friday night, mind you, every Friday night from 5 to 7 to work on this campaign for about 2 months. So I just commend the students, and I'm in awe of their leadership. And Sarah, I can't say enough positive things about your leadership skills and really reining us all in. So.
Thank you very much.
And when the broad, oh, go ahead.
Oh, no.
I was just going to say, when the broad community says that we won't stand for this, men and women together, then it makes it not acceptable, less acceptable, and it puts positive peer pressure. Apparently I wasn't supposed to say that, but it puts positive peer pressure on people not to engage in interpersonal violence.
Definitely, and keep the conversation going. Just even when the fingernail polish wears off, still keep talking about it, because that's what interpersonal violence needs to keep growing, is silence, secrecy, and judgment. But if it's still out there, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, for sure. So, Jay, did you have something to say?
I would like to know if David Huff is here.
Yes, he is.
Okay.
Right here.
I'm sorry.
Dan.
I don't mean to pick on you.
You did. That's okay.
I got waylaid on this quite a few times. A few students have written to me, I don't trust the law enforcement officers. I will never report the police.
You've had several students say that?
Yes.
And I think the reason for that is they're afraid of the process and what happens from step one. You know, I have to share this with someone, this event that has already taken place, whether it's a physical, sexual abuse, any type of abuse like that. They actually have to share that, you know, in the investigation from a law enforcement standpoint. So it makes it difficult for our victims to actually sit in there and share that event, and I guess what I'm trying to say is relive that event. And it's a very traumatic event, whether, you know, whatever type of event took place, and share it with a stranger, a complete stranger that they don't know. A lot of times it's by themselves. We offer, you know, support in them with them, and Michelle 9 times out of 10 is with our victims when I'm interviewing them, if it's a Ball State student. But I think that's a lot of the reason why people don't report it to law enforcement, and it is just because they're afraid of the process and actually having to explain it.
There is another element, and this goes back to advocacy, and that is our conviction rates are abysmally low, and the punishment is pretty poor. And so I think sometimes victims look at a cost-benefit of reporting it, and that's again where we need advocacy, and we need to fight for stronger legislation to truly punish people and to support when victims come forward, to support them better in the legal system.
Yeah, and you know, with that being said, I think there are a lot of very important pieces of legislation that we don't necessarily, I mean, we really don't have time to talk about all of them, but just to name a few. If you guys wanted to do your research, you can talk to me. I'll talk. But there's the Campus Sexual Violence Elimination Act. It was just recently introduced, spring 2011, by U.S. Senator Bob Casey. This is a very important piece of legislation. The Clery Act is something that is very relevant. It requires that campuses report incidences of, you know, sexual assault, and I think that, you know, this is a very big campaign, and we had to start somewhere. So I'm just glad that all of you were able to be part of this and really take a stand against violence toward women. and start these conversations that eventually will create a change. I think if we have planted a seed in any one of your minds that just tells you you don't have to put up with this, your friends don't have to put up with this, you are not alone, you can go to the Office of Victim Services, you can go to A Better Way, you can go to all of these resources within the community, and they will be there for you. So I think with that, I'm going to invite my advisor, Dr. Kupchandani, up here. We're going to just thank everyone, all of our core team members, and thank you guys for coming, but we have some very important people that we need to thank, and the panel, you can stay up here because we have some certificates for you guys. But thank you very much, and I'd like to recognize my team. You guys were awesome. I did not do this alone, so all of that applause that you guys gave me, I don't deserve it. There were awesome teams. We had a publicity team. We had a volunteer team that coordinated all those volunteers that were painting nails. I didn't paint all those nails. We had tons of people from health science classes that were helping us out. We had our amazing research team. So I just wanted to thank all of you guys. Logan Bushing, Kylie Kress, myself, Sam Crone right here, Drew Deek, Kevin Harold, Tiffany Tyler, Christiana Darris, Erin Perkins, Emily Sullivan, Tiffany Ryder, Anita Nargraj. I don't think I said her last name right. I'm very sorry. Erica Bailey, Nina Matswillo, and Meg Mosh. You guys are all amazing. You made this possible. Thank you to our faculty. But Dr. Kupchandani is going to thank some very important people for being here, so I'd like to welcome him.
Tyler, I didn't mean to offend you. I like you very much. I need to tell you guys, it's the reason I'm trying to sit here. I want to be with Michelle. I came to Muncie in 2010, and it's been a fascinating journey. So, and I don't do this often and frequently. Let me do this. And I also wanted to convey, just in case, I have received a few emails telling me that you are creating some kind of a bias by asking, are you man enough? I don't think that we were trying to give that message that men are bad. I'm sorry if that message has gone out. Any kind of violence is bad. So, and you know, I'm quite dehydrated this semester, running around trying to put together this event. But as you are all students and I happen to be an advisor, I would like to call my advisors to give out the certificates. The distinguished professor in economics, Dr. Kerry-Ann McGarry, and the director of and one of the most prominent school health professionals in this nation, Dr. Denise Siebert. The president of American School Health Association, Dr. Jeff Clark, he's here. He's the guy who gave me this job. So, you know, it's easy. I can just sit and say the names. I request the Honorable Mayor to please come forward and take a T-shirt from us, a nail polish.
Thank you. Could I say something for just a minute, please? Just good. This is so.
This must be the
it's
best
that.
spot.
This is so very important to me, and what I want all of you to know is immune from domestic violence or sexual violence. It doesn't run by race. It doesn't run by families. And I can tell you, from my experience as a young man at the age of 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, I watched my mother, who to me was the strongest woman that I've ever been around in my entire life, stand up at least once or twice every week and take beatings to keep my stepfather away from me and my younger brother. And I can tell you the night that we finally got together in the garage when I was 8 years old and my brother was 4, my youngest brother, she was holding in her arms and said, "I can't take this anymore." What do? You'd have thought it was a movie. We did it in the garage, and we couldn't wait to get away from there and run to government housing. So nobody is immune from this type of violence. And it truly is an epidemic, not just in our community, but across our nation. It's an epidemic. And thank God there's young men and women like you that care enough to try and end this violence. And we have to end the violence. We had 25 children in Indiana last year that were killed from child abuse. 25 children that couldn't defend themselves or protect themselves. That's one of the reasons that it was so important for me as mayor to take our neighborhood fire stations and make them a safe station haven for victims of domestic violence or child abuse. So if you're out at the middle of the night and something bad has happened to you, and you can't get a hold of a police officer, head to number 5 fire station right over here on Tillotson. They'll take you in. They'll help get you secured till we can get somebody from the Ball State Police or from a Better Way or Victims Advocate, somebody that can give you a safe haven to where we can start the process. But it's a violent society out there, and again, I don't want anybody to ever think that they're immune from this, because you never know when it's going to happen to you. And when it does, it's horrible. It's horrible. Okay. I can remember my stepfather taking my youngest brother when he was 3 months old and throwing him across the living room. And that was the night my mother took us to the garage and said, "We've got to get out of here." So it can happen to anybody, and thank you all, and thank you for letting me share my story. That's why you mean so much to me. Thank you.
That's for my wife.
Tyler, I mentioned I like you. You are the next.
Dennis Tyler.
Thank you. Joshua, thank you. Dr. Kusha.
Before I get my certificate, there's one thing we didn't say, and it's a big elephant in the living room, so to speak, and that is that about 75% of all sexual assaults on college campuses have alcohol involved. And it's a huge myth that if you go out with your girlfriends, you're immune from sexual assault. And so it's just something to think about, men and women.
You know, this is the first time I've seen Kim. I happen to be the sponsor. I was reading her email once at 2 a.m. I was in tears. Thank you for being a part of this.
Thank you.
Michelle, you know, the day I received this award, I thought I would never ever be able to do anything with it, because it was proposed, the way it was proposed was massive, and I called Michelle and she said, "We'll do it." Thank you, Michelle.
No certificate for you.
Yeah, special thanks for Dr. Coop and Johnny for organizing.
You know, I would like to conclude. I feel very emotional. I have a funny mom back home in India. She lives with my dad, and it's been my dream to impress her. And it's been 31 years that I have been on this planet. And she's always like, "Yeah, you're okay." And she always thought that I was like a little boy. So I called her last night and I said, "Do you think I'm doing okay?" She said, "Yeah, finally you are man enough." So I think
thank you all so much for being here. I'm sorry we couldn't get to all of the Twitter questions, but if you have questions, please do not feel that you can't come up and ask them. You can ask any of us. There are a lot of resources here tonight, so thank you, thank you.
Hi. My name is Janetta Stevens, and I work with the Domestic Violence Unit at the Muncie Police Department. And I want to just take a couple seconds to thank everyone for coming today. I want to thank Cornerstone for donating the space and the mats, and our instructors, Jay Dotson and Ron Locke, two of Muncie's officers, for donating their time, their knowledge, and their experience. I also want to thank all those who have been instrumental in helping launch this grassroots effort to teach us women what we need to know. I know that many of us in this room are survivors, and I know about triggers. I want to say that if anyone feels at any time that that something's a little bit too much for you right now, please don't be afraid or embarrassed to just say stop. We're certainly not here to re-traumatize anyone. We have t-shirts here, water bottles. I want to thank all of you for coming. And without any further ado, I'm going to turn it over to our Chief of Police, Steve Stewart, and everybody have fun.
Well, good morning. What a great looking bunch. I personally want to thank each and every one of you for taking the time out to invest in yourself. That is probably the first step that you need to take when in a situation that maybe some of you have been in the past, and building your self-confidence. We have two great Muncie police officers in Ron Locke and Jay Dotson, who will work with you today and make sure that you learn the skills that you need if you should ever have an unfortunate situation where you have to defend yourself against an attacker. Build your confidence. It's all confidence. Get the confidence in yourself, and anything can happen. With that, again, I want to thank you. This is something that we've started this year, and we want to continue this. I believe the next class is on a Thursday, is that correct? The next one is on a Thursday, is that correct? Okay, they're not sure of the dates, but Investigator Brown shared with me that a lot of people said that they couldn't make it today, so tell your friends, tell your family that this is something that we want to continue to help with you and put this out in the community. With that, Jay Dotson, longtime defensive tactics instructor and well known throughout the state of Indiana, and great guy. He's really teaches well, so I'll turn it over to Jay. Thank you.
My name is Jay Dotson. I've been a Muncie Police Reserve officer for over 25 years. Also have worked for Ball Memorial Hospital, now IU Health, as the Chief of Security for the past 10 years. I started studying martial arts when I was 16 years old and had my 5th degree black belt. I have karate school at the YMCA, at the Northwest YMCA. I've also taught defensive tactics to law enforcement, and have taught at police academies across the country in different types of instruction. One of the things that I've learned through my experience is that if we practice things repetitively, we can remember them under stress. As teaching self-defense classes in martial arts for a good many years, I've often wondered if the things that we taught people were actually beneficial. In fact, some of the instructors that are friends of mine will sit around and talk about it and question some of the validity of some of the tactics that we teach. Rarely do we have an opportunity to hear a success story, but I heard one about 6-8 months ago. I was going to read the email, but I think I'll just give you a general overview. We have taught some self-defense classes at the hospital off and on for a good many years, And there were a couple of young girls that were going on a trip, a summer trip. We're going to go to Europe. And one of the mothers, actually, the girl that I'm going to talk about, her father is a Muncie police officer. One of the girls, they came to self-defense class, and they went on the European trip and without any problems. We went through probably about 5 or 6 classes with these 2 girls, high school age girls. Approximately 5 years later, she was in a marriage, had been married for just a short period of time, just about 30 days. And her husband grabbed her, picked her up, and tried to take her somewhere, put her in a bear hug, and we're going to work on that technique today. And she remembered exactly what we had taught her in the class. And you'll see what that is when we work on it on the floor here in a few minutes. But she remembered it, and it came back, and she was able to escape from him and was able to prevent herself from becoming harmed, and she felt empowered because she remembered those things. And it took her a while to tell her mom, and her mom sent me an email shortly afterwards. But it was a good feeling to know that what we taught that person, that they were able to use that when the time became necessary. One of the things we have to think, though, and understand that we're not going to be able to run through a few techniques at once or twice and get them down very well. So this might be the first time for some of you. Maybe you've been through other self-defense training, but I would encourage you to continue to do it and get to where you have a little bit of a muscle memory involved as well. I've also heard a couple of other stories similar to that where we had students that were young people, very young kids that had taken a karate class, and they were attacked 10, 15 years later, and they remembered some of those techniques. So that's what we'd like to do. As the chief said, we want to empower you with some confidence, because if you're confident, you're more likely to make good decisions. You're more likely to be able to stand up for yourself. And I just want to thank you for being here. There are a lot of other opportunities that I'll share with you for us to do these kind of classes. There are a lot of other opportunities in the community, and we look forward to helping you in the future. Thank you.
A couple things I want to point out is, number one, you have to understand that there's no technique that works for every person every time. So you got to get that out of your mind. If you think, when you work on something and you think to yourself, that wouldn't work. Well, maybe it wouldn't work all the time. It might work some of the time, okay? We can only get general concepts and techniques that work most of the time. So don't, if I'm showing you something or showing you something that you don't think is going to be valuable for you, then just have it in mind. If there's anything else that you've already learned in the past, continue to use that. This isn't the only way of doing it. I think that's important for us to understand. Okay? The other thing is, when someone attacks us, for the most part, they're doing it because they feel stronger or superior. Our advantage is that we're going to surprise them with a distraction or with our ability. Over the years, we've taught self-defense classes. We've had people come back and say, I showed my husband that, like, it didn't work. Well, the reason it didn't work is because you didn't actually stomp on his foot like we taught you. And we're glad that you didn't, right? But you have to understand that if somebody attacks you, let me rephrase this. If someone grabs somebody, they're not grabbing this person thinking, I think he's going to beat me up. No, they grab this person because they want to grab them, punch him, or they're taking something. And they feel powerful to that person. If we surprise them with a distraction, that's how we're going to survive. And essentially, the best way to survive every attack is to escape. All you want to do is get away. Just escape from that. So give me just a couple minutes. I want to briefly talk about body language, signs of aggression, de-escalation, and then we'll get out here on the floor and work together, okay? You can flick your fingers towards their eyes. Most everybody leaves blank. Or you can stomp the ground very hard next to the foot. You can read between the lines. This person's really trying to hurt me, right? I can kick them in the shins, scrape their shin, stomp on their foot. If that doesn't work, I can do it again. And they'll probably not let go anyway. But we want to think in terms of he's letting go. If that hasn't worked, what I'm going to do is take the wrist that he's grabbed, where the opening of his hand is right here. I'm going to twist my wrist in that direction and step back at the same time. The key is, this technique, this might work, but if I utilize my entire body, I'm using all my body weight to get back. The other thing is, anything we work on, the closer your arm is to your body, the stronger it is. It becomes part of your arm. It's out here.
Yeah.
Basically the same thing. I'm going to distract this person here or here. I'm going to take my hand and grab the hand that's been grabbed, making a tight fist, keeping the arm close to my body, like I talked about a minute ago. Grab it here, pulling back like that. Okay? Remember, this might work, but using my entire body is going to make it better. Distraction is the key. A lot of times I'll probably let go after distraction. Distract, tight fist, arm close to the body, hold your arm through. Okay? And when you practice this, don't bang yourself. Okay, the idea, everybody kind of got that, it's kind of like what we call drag this person until they start to loosen up their grip. Once the grip has been loosened, I'm going to lower my center of gravity and flail my arms up like this. So it looks like this without the person kicking, straightening, lowering my center of gravity, and flailing my arms up at the same time. From there, I'm going to turn around and throw an elbow strike and push off that person. Remember, if I'm stomping and straightening their shin or foot, that's what's distracting and losing the blood. The other thing is, if this is for some reason not being very effective, if I can get one of his thumbs, then it's going to help me peel the hands away. But in most cases, this is going to be effective enough to make them loosen up. When the hands loosen up, flail up like that, push off like that, escape, or you can throw a nice little elbow back there and soften them up before you escape. Make sense? As the person throws, I just throw a straight punch over right hand, please. As that person throws that punch, I want to come towards that person and misdirect that punch. This is not a real technical technique, but it works very well with a quick reaction. I'm not trying to grab him or anything. As he comes at me, I'm just moving his hand away. I'm going to say weird, he's going this way. So what if I put myself in a position where I can push that person away and get away? Okay? Thinking in terms of I put my elbow in front of my face to protect my face and the punch. Take your left arm and bring it up. 3 times. You might find a little humor in this because in martial arts this is called combing your hair. And since I have none, it makes it sort of fun.
If you don't have no hair, it's talking on the phone.
Now, I'm here, pushing the hands down with the dragon's tail. On his arm, I want the lead hand to strike here, because there's a pressure point here in your arm, and the back hand, sorry, give me over here. Myself, I'm here, and back. Here, back. Now notice how I stop the back all the time. If we do this, then that looks the back grab the person here or behind the neck, throw the knee strike at the target. Remember, you're going through the target, you're breathing out, a lot of energy. Now, if this works really well, we want to make sure we put our foot down. Because if I kick this person, knee this person really well, and they collapse on me, I don't have a foundation standing on. So, I'm here, I grab, strike, put my foot back down. Or, I do this, it's stronger. You'll notice what I'm doing. Here might be pretty strong because I use my whole body. Nice.